They did ask me to share a little bit about myself and my organization. So I'm the founder and executive director of Digital Nest, which is fairly a new player. We launched in January 2014 and opened our doors in November 2014. But prior to that, I was 8 years with ETR Associates, working really closely with Jill Denner, which she's here today too, doing a lot of research on computer science education. And this, what I created, kind of broke off of ETR based on all the things I was seeing out there happening. And that was, there's lots of money being pumped into computer science education. And in terms of diversity, the needle really hasn't been moving much. And I was just kind of sitting with me for quite some time, kind of thinking about, what's missing and what's going on. And we were providing after-school programming 1 day a week to students in Watsonville, which is about an hour and a half south of here, which is a farm-working, low-income community. So we were going into these schools, all the schools in the district, and providing computer science education. But what we noticed was whenever there's a big gap in time between our programming, so summer break came, winter break came, a kid made the basketball team and went off for a month and a half, it was really difficult to get them back in. Almost impossible a lot of times for a lot of these kids. They just all of a sudden, here was this kid that was super involved, would leave, and then a month later I'd be like, all right, come back in, this basketball season's over, let's get you back in the program. And they'd be like, I'm not into it. It's not my thing, I'm not into it anymore, I'm kind of over it. But yet here's this kid that was super engaged when they were in our program. So kind of really reflecting on that, the more kind of looking we did into that, we found out that kids outside of our program had very low access to technology. So in the community of Watsonville, there was a lot of multifamily households, so lots of kids sharing computers with multiple people in their home, outdated technology, no good internet connection, just lots and lots of different barriers in front of these youth. The second thing that I noticed was we were taking kids over to these big old tech companies in Silicon Valley, and we've been doing this for 10 years. So we were one of the first groups to ever take kids to Google. This is 10 years ago when nobody went there, and it seems like now every school in the Bay Area goes there. Whenever we were coming back to our community, all the kids were like, that's where I want to go work, right? Because those environments were so rich and engaging. But yet we were bringing them back to these computer labs of rows of desktop machines in these stale environments with broken keyboards, big old headsets, with teachers shepherding their kids in for 45 minutes, getting them on a math or reading intervention program, and then shepherding them back out, right? And that was their computer science, their tech education. So one day I ran into a young woman who was one of my sixth grade students 10 years ago, now in college, and she was typing on a computer outside of the community college. And I went up to her, it was a cold evening, and I said, hey, what are you doing? And she's like, well, I'm now in college, and I'm doing a research paper. And I'm like, yeah, what are you doing sitting outside? And she's like, well, I'm tapping into their Wi-Fi. I can't afford internet, I can't afford Starbucks. The library is closed, the community college is closed, but I'm tapping into her network. So that hit me really hard, and it just so happened 2 weeks later I was having coffee with the CEO of a company called NextSpace, which is a co-working space for adults. And I was sharing the story with him, and I said, wouldn't it be cool if there's a co-working space for youth? And he's like, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. So that's what we did. We launched Digital Nest, what we are now. We opened the doors of a 4,500 square foot space. We're 2 co-working spaces on the bottom. We have 3 conference rooms upstairs this is all accessible for youth ages 12 to 24. Classroom, recording studio, fabrication room, all free. Just like tech companies, we're a very hip, cool space. There's not a single desktop in the entire building. There's neon lights, there's music, there's free food. We have Newman's Own Organics, gives us all their product. And so we created that environment, right? And we did so not to feed Silicon Valley with our talent, because the community there was struggling economically, and it was doing no good if we kept shipping our kids. If we were successful and we're shipping our kids off to Google and Apple, that's great for those companies, but it was doing nothing for the local community, right? And we see a lot of this when we send off kids to universities. They leave the community and never come back, right? So our idea was, can we identify those good paying jobs locally? And we have big companies there, but they're not hiring our youth. Can we build up the skill set of those youth to take those jobs? And what we found was within the agricultural community, there's this big tech push because they are fighting for the same talent that Silicon Valley is. And we've got a lot of investment from the agricultural community. So we opened up our center in Watsonville, and this January we're going to be opening up a second one in Salinas. And our kind of vision is to replicate these in all the small towns between San Francisco and Los Angeles, and then beyond. So that's the Digital Nest. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. Hi everyone, my name is Leah Gilliam, and I'm with Girls Who Code. I wanted to talk a little bit about how I came to this work and our work at Girls Who Code. So Girls Who Code runs 2 programs. Our mission really is to close the gender gap in tech with a focus on girls and underrepresented minorities. We have a program that is a 7-week sort of summer immersive program, similar to a boot camp, but not quite, really specifically focused on girls who are rising juniors or seniors in high school. And in some ways, it's kind of a last-ditch effort to really expose girls who might not have had access to fundamental computer science concepts to those ideas. So it's kind of like turn on the lights so they can go ahead to college career and kind of have a sense of what these ideas are about. And the other thing that really begins to happen in these spaces with the focus on working with girls, fundamental CS concepts, is also this big idea of exposure. So exposing young women to other women in the field who have succeeded, inventors, historical figures, to really kind of create that context for what it means to be a woman, to be a girl, to be interested in this kind of work. So we really think about inspiring girls, about exposing them to mentors, to role models, to the historical context of the work, so they also kind of shine a spotlight on the kinds of things that have been done before them, and to help them understand what they might also do. And then basic education. It's really a focus on CS fundamentals, loops, variables, functions, much through making and sort of doing things with your hands. So a combination of soft skills, CS fundamentals. And then we have an after-school program, much more sort of grassroots, run by volunteers, run by facilitators. We have 450 of our after-school programs. These are after-school clubs that are across the country. They're 42 states and in Puerto Rico. And then by the end of, I think it's by the end of May, we will have worked with 10,000 girls across both of those programs. The summer immersion program is very specific. It brings young women into universities, tech hubs, tech centers, and it sees the corporate companies as partners. So part of the reason that we bring women into those spaces is to give them a sense of what that looks like, and also to really provide that pipeline so that women who are working in the companies can begin to mentor and work with young women, but also so corporations can get an understanding of what it means to have young women who are in their company, who are in their space, like making noise in their companies and acting like young women, acting like girls, for 7 weeks. So we really see that as a distinct kind of partnership that we do through these summer programs. And then our clubs program is much more diverse and works with a wider range of girls. My work is really in strategy and innovation. I came 3 months ago to really help the organization think about what to do next, and specifically how to connect the girls that we've worked with this far. So to really network the girls so that they have a strong sense of community as they move forward. So personally, what really drew me to Girls Who Code, my background is in creative technology. I'm really trained as an artist. I identify with making things as a way to learn, as a way to express oneself. And for me, creativity has always been a clear route to broadening participation. So I was really interested in this relationship, particularly with Girls Who Code, because it works specifically in the out-of-school space, but its focus is on encouraging young women to major or minor in computer science. So an intervention that's happening in the out-of-school space, but still really targeted on higher education, continued learning in the in-school space. So this becomes an interesting conversation within the context of our sort of larger topic here, because we're really talking about boot camps, hackathons, the after school space within the context of CS for All. So within the CS Ed community, it's been a rather sudden shift to think about CS as a specifically in-school strategy. And as people who work in the out-of-school space, people are sort of, asking you, oh, what do you think about CS for All, right? Thinking like you're kind of responding to the in-school space, I find, in a way that we usually haven't had to in the out-of-school space. So I think it's been an interesting shift. I think it's something that's happened really just in the past few years in New York. Since there was a CS for All that began in New York, the context may be a little bit different, but I do think that we're responding to formal education and to the in-school space in a different way. Is that what I have to say? I think that's it. Yeah. So what we thought we would do is ask you a little bit about who you are, and then maybe sort of divide the conversation into looking at some different models. So looking at specifically the boot camp, looking specifically at hackathons as a model, and then talking more broadly about the after school space, and then sort of looking at some of the benefits and challenges there.
Yeah. And Christoph has a microphone, and
I'll just hand it down.
Everybody just
hello.
Just
I'll just hand it down.
intro.
If you could use it to introduce yourself and why you're here. Let's keep them quick in the interest of time, maybe 10 to 15 seconds, no more than that. And then my colleague over there will cover the mic on that side. So I'm going to pass it down to Kay.
Okay, thank you. I'm Kay Reed. I am with ITology, and the mission is to grow the IT talent pipeline, but with a supply chain perspective.
I'm Servan. I'm the founder of Code for Fun, and we started with after school and camps program, but now we're trying to also help school districts to be trained. So we borrow curriculums, we create our own curriculum, and we are focusing on middle school and elementary.
Sure, if you could also just quickly share for everybody where you're based and kind of where your operating reach is, just so that if people say, oh, I want to talk to her or him.
So we are primarily based in the peninsula, headquarters in Fremont, and we work with Fremont, from Fremont to San Jose, I will say Palo Alto all the way down to San Jose. We have few schools also in San Francisco.
Maybe to Kimberly? Oh, this one. Why did you get that sign?
Oh, okay.
You want me to go then? Kimberly Bryant with Black Girls Code. We do after-school programs as well as some in-school code clubs for girls 7 to 17. Headquartered in the Bay Area, but we have chapters in 10 other cities across the U.S. and in Joburg.
Maybe set it down this way.
Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm Corinne Takara. I work mostly in San Jose, East San Jose. I work with the Alamac Educational Foundation. I run a 6-week summer camp, STEAM camp, 6th grade to exiting 8th graders. And I also do pop-up maker spaces in public spaces to facilitate kind of conversation on urban planning. Okay.
Hi, I'm Lane Powell. I'm the founder and executive director of Tech Sassy Girls. We work with girls in middle and high school in Orlando, Florida, and also Miami, Florida. And we run hackathons, after-school programs, summer camps, and we also have tech clubs within the schools, but we're really an informal learning environment.
Hi, I'm Megan Groom. I'm the Senior Vice President for Education at the New York Academy of Sciences. We're a scientific membership society, but in the education department, what we're trying to do is get our subject matter experts out into the education world, teaching, mentoring, serving as role models. Our work here with Infosys is around our after-school program, where we have our over 1,000 young scientists who spend a school year with an after-school program. Our programs, though, broadly are global. We have kids from over 50 countries participating in our different virtual programs. So we are trying to get someone on the International Space Station to mentor some of our kids. If you have any pull there, please let me know. We do have someone in Antarctica, so it's pretty exciting. It's a penguin, but it's in Antarctica.
My name's Rosa Moreno. I'm with the Corporation for National Community Service. We're a federal agency. We are a grant-making institution. We fund service and volunteerism. We're most well known for our AmeriCorps. Probably fund a lot of you in the room. So glad to hear all the work that you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Rosa Moreno. I'm with the Corporation for National Community Service. We're a federal agency. We fund service and volunteerism. We're most well known for our AmeriCorps. Probably fund a lot of you in the room. So glad to hear all the work that you're doing. So thank you.
I'm Lou Karras from West Liberty University in West Liberty, West Virginia. I am director of the Center for Arts and Education, which is a makerspace and a satellite of the Create Lab of the Robotics Institute of Carnegie Mellon University. I teach in the College of Education, both with the teacher education program, but also a community education program, working with students who eventually want to work for organizations like yours.
I'm Zinka Roby. I work for Blue Shield of California. I'm in the IT department. Actually, I'm here just personal interest more than anything. I live in Oakland, and I'm very involved in the public school system, and so I'm just the Girls Who Code. I'm really interested because I work with a lot of mentoring young women, actually middle school and high school. And I've been in IT for many, many years. I went through college where I was the only woman in a lot of my classes. So I'm trying to get them to really look at IT as a career path for them versus some other things. So I'm just really trying to be here to listen and learn.
Hi, I'm Natasha Singer. I'm a reporter at the New York Times, and I cover education technology.
Hi, I'm Ryan Seashore, founder of Code Now. We're a nonprofit that teaches underrepresented high school students to code. Through our model, we partner up with companies like Infosys, and they provide space, volunteers, and funding. Code Now provides the curriculum, the laptops, recruits the students, trains the trainers, and oversees the program. So we really engage communities or companies to be part of the solution and create a bridge between community and companies. We have programs in New York, Seattle, Salt Lake City, Miami, San Francisco, San Jose, Oakland, and Los Angeles later this year. Cool.
Hi, my name is Giancarlo Cedra. I'm with the Digital Harbor Foundation. We run an after-school makerspace for youth. We serve 2 age groups, 3rd through 5th, and 6th through senior level high school. And now we're also developing educator workshops. We just did a workshop in Idaho and Pittsburgh. So we're trying to reach or push our reach farther out and help other communities in need.
I'm David Delmar with Resilient Coders. We work with a slightly different, slightly older population. We work with, we actually run a series of boot camps with high-risk young people who are out of school between the ages of 17 to 26. And we do have a high school program as well, but in a web development company that hires back our students from the boot camp to build product for clients. Oh, and we're in Boston, in the sort of eastern Massachusetts area.
Hi, my name is Candice Reyes-D'Andrea. I work at New York City Department of Youth and Community Development. DYCD is a contracting agency, and we fund the largest network of after-school programs, I understand, in the country. We are very fortunate to have New York Academy of Sciences as a partner, and some of our programs are recipients of a lot of stuff that Megan does. My role is really to try to figure out how to support the programs with their efforts relating to science, technology, literacy, engineering, and math. And I'm always interested in hearing how other people are, what they're doing, and it's great to be here. Thanks.
Sure, I'm Dan Garcia, teaching professor at UC Berkeley. We offer a course called Beauty and Joy of Computing. It has 50% women, which is awesome. And for our non-majors course, we're working with high school teachers across the country, doing PD for them. We're in the kind of 200 space of the number of teachers we're reaching for that. I'm also connected with the Level Playing Field Institute out of Oakland. Many of you know that. It's Mitch Kapor's foundation. They have a 5-week residential program where the kids learn STEM courses, and one of their courses they learn is Beauty and Joy of Computing, our course. And what we decided to do is have this interesting idea where they take kind of 5 weeks of it during the summer, and then they actually do an after-school program on the Saturdays to, I guess Saturday's after school, but it's like Saturday school, to come in for about 4 or 5 hours and continue with local teachers doing our courses. And that's been really interesting and successful in our small pilot. We want to grow this. So how do we get this to a lot more folks? So I'm actually interested in maybe forums and collaborations with folks to reach more students who don't have any computer science in their school. This is a great course, and we'd like to get it to those kids.
We actually had some of our kids do BUJ.
Awesome. That's great.
I know, Kay, you didn't have a chance to share where your
Yeah, we're in the Carolinas is where we are. And we do have after-school programs and also Saturday programs focusing on middle and high school students, as well as connecting college students to internship opportunities and also advancing professionals further in their career.
Great. Well, Jacob and Leah, back to you.
Yeah.
So we're going to take, we have how much, about 30 minutes or so?
I think we should just go until people get bored and leave.
We don't want to do that to you.
We've got time.
So
we're going to take about 10 minutes and talk about each model.
We're going to talk, yeah. So we'll 10 minutes on boot camps and 10 on hackathons and after-school programs. So we're really interested in just opening this up and have a conversation around what things are working within each of these spaces and what's not working.
Can we just do a little? Can we do a little bit of definition so that I understand exactly when you say boot camps, what you mean, hackathons, and after-school programs? Since I'm in after-school, I assume that all of those have a multitude of definitions, but if you don't mind defining them so we have a shared.
No, I think, and this is when the open discussion part begins. So I thought I'd start with a definition of boot camp as I did a little reading and research. One of the things that I thought was interesting about boot camps is it is historically not boot camp when you think about like the Army putting you through boot camp, but boot camp in terms of tech, code, and development is seen as an intervention to get you so that you don't have to go to school, right? It teaches you the things that you need to know in the workplace so that you can do the kinds of jobs that you would need to do. What I think is interesting, of course, is that in some ways it's seen as a disruption and as a way to circumvent something like a computer science degree. When we think about the benefits and the challenges, it's an immersive experience. Some boot camps charge, some boot camps charge a lot. Yes, sorry. I wanted to make that distinction that there are some boot camps that charge, and then there are some boot camps that charge a lot. I think that's a big distinction. And it's yes, it's always an intensive approach. Yeah.
Just because it's being recorded.
I'm sorry. So is it an intensive approach over a short period of time?
Yeah, it can be anywhere from 6 weeks to 18 weeks. I didn't study every model out there. General Assembly, Flatiron School. There are lots of different models that are out there, but always an intensive approach, a focus in many ways, and definitely you guys chime in and correct me. But definitely a focus on learning specific languages and becoming familiar with them so that you can be employable and sort of hit the workforce. So in some ways, yes, it's not the same thing as getting a CS degree, but it helps you and you can become employable. Obviously, the benefit being that it's in the out-of-school space. I think one of the challenges can be that it is so incredibly targeted, right? You are learning very specific languages. Sometimes learning one language isn't the same thing as being kind of literate and fluid and comfortable in the field.
So are there expectations about what knowledge people come in, or are there different kinds of boot camps where you don't have to know anything at all, and then there are other boot camps where you may have some understanding of the topic? Or
yeah, I'm gonna throw it open.
Yeah, as I say,
don't apologize. I think part of it is just to take a few minutes to build the description and to hear a little bit about different models. So yeah.
So boot camps are I spend a lot of time dealing with and thinking about boot camps. Besides running our own boot camp, I also personally volunteer, teach at another boot camp, and we have also sent some of our students to other boot camps. So I live, eat, and sleep boot camp, and so I think that there are the model that's emerging right now is that boot camps are becoming so competitive. I'm talking about for-profit boot camps for a second. So for-profit boot camps are becoming so incredibly competitive that they have their pick of the litter. And what that means is that if somebody comes in with a college degree and maybe a little bit of computer science background versus someone who comes in with a college degree and no computer science background, they're going to pick the person that has a computer science background. So what ends up happening is that the bootcamp movement started as a way of intervening and taking people who had no college background and then plopping them into jobs. And what it really looks like now, if I'm honest, and if none of my bootcamp partners are listening, is that they take very qualified candidates and they make them slightly more qualified candidates. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so these are people who wake up, they wake up one day, they're 28 years old, and they're like, I want to be a software engineer. And I haven't coded anything since a couple of years ago. And so like the boot camps that we have worked with in Boston have like a 20% acceptance rate. And so what the piece that's missing there, so the piece that's missing there is, well, what about those folks who, what about the 80%, right? And so part of what we do at Resilient Coders is we have sent young people through our boot camp, and that our boot camp makes them viable candidates for those other boot camps. Or we've actually sent kids from our after-school program to those boot camps. And it is, I'm talking about boot camp in the sense that it is seen as a workforce development tool instead of a degree.
Yeah.
I think that I see a big difference between a lot of the models that we have in the room. Are some of us focus on educational goals, and some of us focus on workforce development goals. I don't really, I mean, college enrollment is not a metric for us. Dollars are a metric for us, earned by our youth. And so I think that's interesting. Like a camp and a boot camp. A camp is a program that hopefully gets you towards college, and a boot camp is something that is very different from parallel to college.
The other thing that often comes up around discussion around boot camps, and besides the how challenging they are to get in, is can somebody really take 6 to 18 weeks off of their life and afford, especially if you're a young adult, you have a family, can that person really get away and leave all that and do this real intensive time and pay for it even to get in from the very get-go. So that's another thing that's coming up a lot around boot camps is the equity issues around who has real access to these opportunities.
And then also if the focus is on employability, it makes a boot camp much more likely to take someone who they feel is going to be quick to be able to be employed when they come out.
It has that culture.
Yeah, totally.
So you talked that was specific for...
You can use the mic, please, Megan, just because it's being recorded.
Sorry, yeah, that was specific for for-profit boot camps. Could you talk about not-for-profit boot
Correct.
camps?
Yeah,
So I had a comment to what you said about taking time off and making the financial investment, which is true. However, college is not free and it's very expensive, and so there are some alternative schools that are starting to pop up, and we have one here in San Francisco, like a Burston School, where they say like, give us 2 years of your life, it's free, and we'll take a cut of your salary afterwards. And those models have been very successful in France, and they want to jump on that. And it's a little different than the boot camp because it's much longer, and it's also not specific to language. It's basically, look, this is the way we're going to run. You have a project, go figure it out. And so just to say that this is not, boot camp are not all very expensive, and not all for profit. There's other options as well.
Does anybody want to speak about the not-for-profit boot camp?
I'll hand myself the mic
you
over
have
here.
a mic.
I just didn't want to lean over and just talk right into it. I feel like that's unfair. I think that one of the things that we discovered early on, I think we might have been joking about this earlier, that for our boot camp, actually even for our after-school program, our biggest competitor was Foot Locker. We compete with minimum wage jobs because we have kids who are like, I would love to do it, but there's no way that I can spend that amount of time our program is 7 weeks long, for 7 weeks not working. And so whenever I talk about stipends, it always raises controversy. There are some hardcore educators out there that are like, kids have to want it, and money is not an incentive. I know Megan's making a face, but I get this, I hear this. And so I guess I wanted to throw it out to the room. Where do people stand on the question of stipending young people? Do you where are your stand? Well, what do you think about it conceptually? And B, is it a challenge for folks?
I would say it's definitely a challenge. In my 6-week summer camp, we hire local youth to be our youth assistants, so they're in training to teach. Initially, we had I think we didn't have the grant funding to pay a high enough standard to compete. So our kids come to our camp for free, and we provide lunch. And we initially thought, well, we can do the minimum wage, but then it went up in San Jose. And so all of a sudden we're like, oh my gosh, we can't recalibrate. We already got our grant funding. And the following year we went up. But it definitely is something that, we wouldn't be able to get local youth from our community to be assistants and train them. We also pay to train, so we're now writing to our grants. They can't just come for a training a couple days because they have to be paid, and they will go to another job, just like you're saying, Foot Locker or wherever at the mall. So I think, I know you're talking more about the students being in the camp, but it's also something in terms of staffing these boot camps. You want to staff locally, and you want to draw from your students who've gone through the program. So you got to create that ecosystem where that kind of can replicate. So yeah, I think it's really important, the funding.
Can we transition?
Yeah, let's transition to hackathons. I'm gonna keep you guys wanting more. Yeah.
So I'm sitting here. I've never heard of boot camps and this whole pay for, and being in an IT industry where we actually do a lot of hiring. I must say I don't think I've ever I've hired someone out of a boot camp, as far as I know, because when we get resumes and things like that, usually they've had the experience or they're coming out of school. But so I guess I'm like, whoa, a little light bulb went off and saying, where are these kids being employed, and how successful is it? Because it seems like it's just an intensive program to get them into a job, right? Mm-hmm. I guess I haven't. This is again my personal. I've never seen it on folks that I've been hiring in the industry. So, is there?
Wait, I'm gonna cut you off so we can hear another voice.
The boot camps exist to really fill the need for jobs with startups. There's such an overwhelming need for technology talent that's what these organizations are really filling. And so I think some of them claim like a 90% or 95% placement rate. I'm not sure how that works, but there's right now such a huge number of open jobs and not enough people to fill it, and that's what the boot camps are really trying to fill right now. Yeah.
Use the mic, please.
Sure.
And this is my last thing. So there's a need. I know Salesforce folks at Wells Fargo, that's in the kind of not the startup industry, but the established industry. Mm-hmm. There's a huge need for folks, and and we engage companies like Infosys to fill that gap for us. So I'm just kind of, my little light bulbs are going off saying maybe this is another source of where we can fill those gaps, right? I'm like listening to you with a mic. So.
Yeah. And so there's boot camps that are national. They're all over. You can find them. It's really become a massive industry. There's a real demand. So there's a good chance that if you have an office in a specific area, you can find these boot camps.
I mean, and I think based on this conversation also, it might be an interesting point of entry for you, right? To look for a boot camp and then see like, oh, okay, is this a for-profit? Is it a nonprofit? Who does it serve? Who has access? Yeah.
You may have heard of these. I know you didn't give this to me to keep talking, but you may have heard of these as like summer internship programs, and there are sort of company-led ones. But I think this is really interesting to talk about the for-profit and some of the sort of predatory things we've seen in for-profit education versus not-for-profit.
And there's also great initiatives like Yes We Code has an initiative to place individuals from diverse backgrounds in these boot camps. And so there's different things out there where if you are looking to hire, you can also hire.
Their program is different. It's an apprenticeship program.
But there are some companies like Adobe, who I was just meeting with recently. They will sponsor youth of diverse backgrounds to enter some of these boot camps, and they have sponsorships that they can't fill. I mean, they're trying to find youth to fill these internships, these sponsorships.
Let's move on and talk a bit about hackathons as a model. Does someone want to define hackathon? Great.
So a hackathon is an event where people will come for a very specific day or two, and usually sometimes overnight. So they are in that room and they have to produce something. And usually hackathons end up with some prize and award. So there's some people who are there to elect who is going to be the winner. And they are sometimes, often, I think they are company run because, for example, a Facebook hackathon will be like, okay, develop as much as you can on the Facebook platform, and that's good for them. So, and then there are some other hackathons just to get kids competing. For us, because we are being primarily, I'm talking about Code for Fun, we've been focusing on elementary, middle school. Our approach to high school has been to have them come and volunteer, so be part of the community, and also giving them some counseling about, okay, those are all the tools that are available for you online, so go and learn. And also hosting, helping them to host their own hackathon. So we have one hackathon coming up in June, and it's been created by high school students for high school students, and I think that's great. It's a great event and on top of it, there are girls, so that's even better. So it's a great way to say, okay, I like coding, I like programming, and I had so much fun in hackathons. I'm creating one. Please come and help us, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of models that have really seen change and sort of a widening of participation, Hackathon is really, really particularly interesting, I think, because it used to really reward people, for having the skills when they walked in the door. And to see hackathons really kind of, some really expand in some ways and make room for people who have a number of different talents, like you can design and be a part of a team, as opposed to if you don't know how to code, like get out of here, has been interesting. And I also I think the way that it sort of has been picked up and shaped to be a bit more inclusive has been interesting. But I'm also interested in people's experiences with hackathons. Is that a wide enough definition? Do people want to amend, add, detract, benefits, challenges?
So our program, Tech Sassy Girls, we work with girls in middle and high school, and that was the adult version of the hackathon. We do the junior edition, which is basically a half a day, and the girls are given subject or topics to solve. So they have to solve a problem within their community, focused on women in technology, financial literacy, education, or childhood obesity. And they have about 5 hours to kind of figure that out, but we get professional engineers, computer scientists, graphic designers from the community that serve as mentors for the girls, and so they help them work on these, on the problem that they select. So the girls are divided into teams, and they have to go through the whole iteration of the design phase and brainstorming. And we had our first one last year, and we took 2 of the girls who created an app using Scratch, created a game using Scratch to the DC Maker Faire. And so for some of them, they've never been outside of their respective communities, so that was an opportunity for them to get on a plane, to stay in a hotel, and also talk about the project that they actually created. And this year, we did the same thing again. We had 27 girls last week that participated in the hackathon, and the winners from the teams get to come to our summer camp where we teach them an actual programming language. So during the hackathon, they're choosing between App Inventor, AppyPie, Wix, Scratch, etc. But at summer camp, that's when we talk about HTML, CSS, Python, processing. They're actually learning the lessons for the curriculum for 1 week, 9 to 4, and they're creating a project. And so they could either further enhance what they created at the hackathon or work on something totally different, and then they present that to the community at the end of the week. So that model has been extremely successful for us. When that light bulb goes off, when they're actually, creating a solution for a problem in their community, you can't buy that. I mean, that it's priceless, to see their faces and their level of engagement during that short amount of time is pretty incredible.
Yeah, no, I mean, at the heart of that work is project-based learning, right? And taking that whole cycle of ideation, design, creation, and then the key part is coming out with some kind of something workable. Like that's the big challenge, is that you come out with a workable prototype, and then you get that critique and hopefully some assessment. And I think what's been interesting about seeing education begin to take over the hackathon is actually seeing those learning components be a part of it. Is less the kind of like, first of all, you walk in and it's not like totally sweaty, funky, like male mess. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's a really vibrant, interesting new space. I find, as someone who like has done a lot of hackathon judging and stuff. I kind of show up at the end, and I have been really happy with that transition of like coming in and seeing like just like diverse, crazy, messy spaces full of kids instead of like whatever I told you, male, white, but just really to see that design cycle, and then to see kids get sometimes get some really meaningful critique and feedback, and even some sort of assessment at the end, like just to see that, and again, that light that goes on. I've been a reluctant fan, but I've really seen, I think, some interesting reinterpretations of that model.
And I think I'm sorry, this will be it.
No,
but
don't
I
apologize.
think what's key too is
talk.
that when they see the professionals in the field that's offering critique is very different than staff giving them that same amount of critique, right? Because it's legitimate at that point, because they're working for X company, X tech company, or X engineering firm, et cetera. So it brings a whole nother dimension to it. The other thing that we did, we surveyed our partners that support our work and asked them, when they're hiring folks, what are you looking for? What programming languages are you looking for? And that informs us, and that's what we teach at our summer camps, so that they can later go intern at these companies, and they have the skill sets that they're looking for.
That's great.
I was just going to say one thing that's a little bit different. We talked so skills heavy in boot camps and a little bit in hackathon, but I suspect but don't know for sure that there's a really strong cultural element within hackathons. Like you can walk in as a girl and you don't know anybody in the room, and you walk out, you're part of a team, you've gone through a process, you're now an insider in this community, and they build a community of their own. So I would say that probably something like a hackathon is a really good crucible for creating positive youth development and positive culture within a CS context that we wouldn't see in something like a boot camp that could be created pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I was going to just...
Can be.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. One of the challenges that we face with our youth is when there's a lot of hackathons that are open to outside teams that come in and be a part of it. So a lot of the universities sometimes will open it up to the general community to come in. And I always get offered to take kids up there, but I can never recruit students to go because they're so like, what is this hackathon? Like 3 days of being immersed in this thing, like that's so intimidating to them. But what we've done is we've held our own hackathons to kind of break down some of those fears that they have around what the spaces could be and what they can accomplish as a team, and if we just come collectively. So if you haven't done a hackathon, it could be something that's just really, it could be a really short thing. It could be an 8-hour event, free pizza, and get a couple of mentors in and help out, have some cool prizes. It could be a really great way to introduce that concept of a hackathon, and then challenge them to go into one of these other bigger hackathons and just experience the energy in that room of people creating and people innovating really quickly. So we only have about, I think, less than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
We haven't talked after school.
Yeah, we've spent some time talking about after school programs, and I know from Infosys, I'm guessing they're really excited to hear about some of our thoughts around the after school space, and they're really involved, and so just open it up to other general thoughts about after school programs and your experiences with them.
Well, I'll do a little bit of definitional work. I think after...
Yeah, thank you. Go for it. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Definition,
sorry.
go.
So definitionally, I think after school is time that is after school. It's traditionally been thought of as an extension between the end of the regular school day and when parents get off of work. So it has traditionally been thought of as a more of a child care, keep the kids safe sort of space. And over the past 15 years, 10 years, it's been seen as a real opportunity to add rigor, but also enrichment. And there is a lot of slipperiness around after school, out of school time, and informal education. And I would say one of the things that defines after school is that it does have a youth development focus, which is really about keeping the kids happy, healthy, and safe. What was?
Engaged.
And engaged, yeah.
I think someone else said safe. Did someone else say safe? Yeah, I both feel like that's a component too.
But I think also to add to the definition is it's just not directly after school.
Yeah.
It's programs on the weekends, over the summer. It's just finding any time to keep them involved.
Right, so historically after school, but now, talked about more as informal learning or the out-of-school space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just looking at the board, at least with what I do at the Digital Harbor Foundation, when I see after school, it's almost a combination of the boot camp model and the hackathon, where we have a 7-week and 14-week model where they learn different topics, and it is intensive in that sense. But then it also has the benefits of a hackathon where you're working on a team, where you're learning, and it's okay to fail, and it has all of like these safeguards around it. So it's like if it was like a Venn diagram after school, I would see it in the middle.
Yeah. No, I think particularly when you're talking about these event-based models, you see a kid, they get really excited, and the question is always like, what next? What can you point them to next so that they don't lose that excitement? Yeah, so definitely somewhere in between.
I see after-school programs as being really important with the CS for All movement, because there's a huge push to get programs into schools. But with a lot of the students that we work with, they're from underrepresented communities, and they don't know what programming is. There's no role models, there's no peers. And so really demystifying it and getting them excited is really important. And so I think that's something that people are underestimating, the value of these after-school programs, or more like out-of-school programs, because they are a valuable part of the pipeline.
Yeah, and I think particularly out-of-school programs have always had a really unique relationship to technology. You couldn't bring a mobile phone into school for years. But in the after-school space, you could use your phone. You could see it as a creative mechanism. You would take pictures with it. You could use a camera. You could use all of these things in the out-of-school space that were hard to bring into the in-school space. And I've always been interested in, when you work in a school and see the kids that shine during the day, and then kids that shine, out of school, and you talk to the teachers and you're like, do you know what a rock star you've got in the after school program? And they're like, wait, that's slacker? And you're like, yeah, you can really see how kids really thrive in different types of spaces and in different environments. And yeah, in a lot of ways, for me, I always see the out of school space as part of that intervention, right? Of a way to really highlight and represent and spotlight different kids who may have a hard time during the school day, but are still really have skills and can really show that rigor and shine in a completely different way.
So I've been finding after-school program extremely challenging compared to camps. So two comments. So one is that it's elective, and it's the kids don't have that much time during the school year, so we're competing with baseball and basketball and all those sport activities. And so, maybe in September, the parents want to make sure that, there's after school sign up, but then in the middle of the year, I see a huge decline because the kids are tired and there's too much academics, so we want to focus them on maybe more activities outdoors. So that was one comment, is that it's extremely competitive. I'm hoping that the CS for All is going to be an open door for increasing after-school program, because I see it as after-school program and camps as an enrichment, not as a basis to get to school, but as an enrichment. So I like it. I like to do it at school. I want to do more. I want to take a camp or an after-school program. So hopefully, right now for us, at least in elementary and middle school, it's more the parents reading the flyers and putting their kids in there. We do see some kids who shine, but we also do see some kids who are had no clue what they were supposed to be signed up for. And so it's sometimes a little challenging to keep them engaged. And so they sign up and then they stop coming, and then so we can't complete our program because we have a 10-week program and they only come for 3 weeks.
You have time for one more, maybe, comment?
Yeah, so we, to combat some of those challenges, we actually exhibit at STEM night at the schools. So in our district, the parents are actually at STEM night, and we provide information about our out-of-school environment, and we tell them about the program and why their students should be engaged. We also encourage competition among the young ladies, and so the person who has the most, or who has the least amount of absences, I should say, they get X, and we get one of our partners to provide a, $100 gift card, or one instance it was a tablet, et cetera. So it becomes like a little internal competition for them to see, who's not going to miss attending the event. The other thing is, depending on the school, we structure our after-school programs for weeks at a time. So if our district is testing, for example, in April, we're not there in April because they should be focused on, studying for that particular exam. And so we structure weeks with them. We offer 8-week programs, we offer 10-week programs, we offer 12-week programs, but we partner with the schools. The principals provide a STEM coach that's there at every time that we meet with the students. And so the coaches then are holding the students accountable as well. So if a student is missing, they have to answer to the STEM coach as to why they're not showing up for that particular activity during that day. Of course, barring emergencies and absences and things like that, but we really try to make it a partnership with the schools and get the teachers involved to support what they're learning during the after-school tech club.
Can we have Blue say something? She's been super quiet over there.
Well, it's interesting. I've worked in the nonprofit world in inner city Pittsburgh, and I'm now working in West Virginia. And some of the challenges there are complicated by the rural nature of the communities. After-school programming is a challenge if you are at a school and the children have an hour-plus bus ride to get home. So and you're in communities that don't have access to the kinds of resources, mentors that are being talked about. One of the things that we have been doing at the university is using our students to then go to the schools. It might be a club period, it might be an after-school program, but trying to take the resources that we have there and use that as an opportunity for informal professional development with the educators so that they begin to understand that there's value in that.
No, I'm really glad you mentioned that, and I was going to point out the work that Digital Harbor is doing, because I think that's also really interesting. One great way that the out-of-school space can really impact the in-school space is through professional development. I mean, it's really a big, out-of-school teachers have a completely different skill set than in-school teachers, and particularly when it comes to that facility of working with technology, it's a really interesting kind of collaboration. So I'm glad that you really brought that up, to think about how you develop the teachers, in-school teachers, so that they sort of also begin to understand a little bit about, the types of skills that are needed in the out-of-school space.
Two quick comments too. The mentors, the adults, the consistency of the presence of the adults is so important, whether you're running something that is a continuous program or those 8 weeks. Because for many of the children I've worked with, there are a lot of adults who come and go, and to have the same people there is really important. And then to the hackathon, Tom Lowry, who invented the hummingbird kits that a lot of schools are using, has started pushing an idea for something he's calling the robot petting zoo as an alternative to a hackathon, particularly for older elementary, middle, high school students. And the students have a design challenge to create a pet, an animal that can be petted, it can dance, or it can be fed. And it's over 15 to 20 hours. It could be, multiple sessions. But the idea of engaging kids who have the interest in the design aspect as well as the coding, the building. And he has been working with presenting several free workshops in the Pittsburgh area to get some of us trained in how to run those as a way to counteract some of the, not necessarily negative aspects, but just some of the aspects of the old style of a hackathon.
Yeah, I think we're going to wrap it up with one last comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. So in New York City, a significant number of the after-school program staff are college students or people from the community. Some programs do have teachers. But one of the things we've been realizing is looking more closely at the development of the staff, especially the college students or the ones who haven't started college, because we're beginning to notice that we have some of those folks who are showing up consistently for different training sessions and professional development. So kind of looking at that as yet, and it's just missed us all this time, just sort of thinking, well, that's a whole set of youth that we could be helping to develop into the field. So, I just wanted to share that, and it's something I think we should all be looking at. It's not just the kids and the students in the high school or middle school or elementary school, but also the people from outside, the community folks, looking at them too as potential folks for the field.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for sticking in there and
thinking with us
and talking with us. It's been really great. We have some notes. Take a picture of the notes. Take them back to your community, your workspace, your colleagues. Continue this discussion with each other and us. And anything else?
No, thanks you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, big round of applause for our amazing facilitators. I'll remind everybody, I know a lot of people here are on Twitter, and you've got Twitter handles for everybody, so this conversation can definitely be continued in the Twitterverse as well. But
Burn Sienna.
Hashtag Burn Sienna, because we're the cool ones with the Burn Sienna, this thing. So that's the context. But I'd actually use this opportunity also to make a quick pitch out here to this audience, because one of the reasons, or one of the things we're hoping to do with what we've been doing is, for those of you who aren't familiar or you haven't had a chance to, if you haven't seen the InfiMakers Cafe in front of the keynote theater, that actually is, it's a physical manifestation of the maker competition that we've been running. And it's great hearing from all of you here, because one of the challenges that we've been facing, we launched this last year, and there's a whole youth section to it. And we actually committed $500,000, which is $10,000 grants towards makerspaces, which winning kids could nominate local nonprofits or schools or libraries for. And we made I still think the right choice, where we wanted to put as much of our money towards the grants as possible and not enough in advertising. But the sad part of it is, we've had some amazing entries, and what triggered my memory was you mentioning the robot petting zoo, because they were actually one of our winners. Is we still have 40 of these $10,000 grants we haven't been able to give away. Wow. So I would definitely say, if you have kids that you're working with and who are working on projects, and these could be apps as well, so either physical artifacts or digital artifacts. We're going to relaunch the competition come fall when the school year starts. I would definitely urge you to encourage them to enter. When there's 40 prizes and you've got 5 entrants, your odds of winning are pretty high. But I'll ask you to take this back into those groups. The kids themselves get to win $1,000, which is great validation for them. And they could nominate your organization or their library or their school to actually get this. And part of the $10,000 that we're giving to each one of these actually goes towards PD for 2 staff members to learn how to operate the makerspace and use it and figure out what equipment they need. So I'll definitely make this pitch back to you again come August or September. And it's super easy to enter. They just had to make a 90-second video of what they've built. And I'm very proud to share that 2 of our kids were actually invited to the White House Science Fair. Kimberly was there. And to give you a sense, these are the cutest 10-year-old and 11-year-old boys who had built a top hat with a solar-powered fan to keep their head cool. So we're not looking for people to change the world, but just come up with really cool solutions. Yeah, and they were so excited about it, and one of them had bright green hair, and I think he will remember forever the president high-fiving him and telling him, "I love your hair." So, but yes, would love to get your help in getting kids aware of this, and schools and organizations like yours participating. But thank you for your patience. Thank you for sticking it out for this time. Another big round of applause for Leah and Jacob.
Thank you.